Hey everybody, this is Wintermute coming to you from the Think Tank, and today we're going to be doing the last for at least for a little while in the series of Tech Talk. I am sure other things will kind of come up, other reasons to readdress some of the tech and how it interacts with the game. We haven't really talked about tech and how it affects some of the expansions and things of that nature. And I know that there are some national reference updates coming to the sheets for some rules that didn't quite make it on there. They may change things as well. But still going nation by nation. We're on the last one, and that's America. Now the U.S. Has a caveat or two with it. Well, let me start. Okay, so they start off with four major factories. So that's four dice right off the bat. So that puts them on par with Germany and actually ahead of Russia in the overall tech game. And not surprisingly so, the American industrial capacity was just crazy at that point in history. Even before the war, it was a very, we were moving towards being a very industrialized nation. So they have four dice to start with, and then they have, I want to say, two medium factories right off the bat that you can upgrade to major factories, and then go to five dice. Now one thing with America is they don't, obviously their income for military spending is really low as well. So, but unlike somebody like Russia, who starts off really low and then kind of ramps up, that America is really going to ramp up way more than a lot of the other nations. And they don't really have the worry of being invaded on land compared to like Russia, who has to really question whether or not they want to spend money on upgrading their factories early on. So for America, it's a little more of a safer bet to just, I'll just spend 6 this turn, spend 6 next turn, upgrade those two medium right away, and in a couple turns I'll start upgrading one of the minor factories, because America has factories all over it. So you won't have any problems there. So again, you'll just kind of have to do the math and figure out how you want to pull it off. Now America's also got that special aspect to it of now, and I didn't mention this with Russia. Russia has a similar thing where one of their victory conditions is based off of the kind of tech that they have. Well, America has technical superiority. At the end of the game, you want to have heavy bombers, jet fighters, strategic rockets, and long-range aircraft technology. Now, with that said, we pointed that out. I'm going to kind of push that off to the side. I'm not going to worry about that aspect of this as I talk through this video. I'm going to just focus on the practical applications of whatever tech they go for. And then you as the player will decide when you think it's best to go for those four techs, if you haven't already. So keep that in mind as I'm kind of talking about some of this. So America's also got a lot of other aspects going for it that don't make it as clear cut. One thing, and like I said, mentally I break down a lot of the techs into the naval techs and the not naval techs, or the land techs and the not land techs. In America's case, they need to be able to fight through whatever Navy is in their way to be able to get to where they need to go. Now, as a general rule, if you look over here, Germany and Italy are generally not going to be huge threats to the American Navy. Either Britain's kept them under control, or knocked them out completely, whatever the case may be. But over here in this side, subs are going to be a bit of a problem that they have to think about. But they generally are able to just come over here and kind of do what they want for the most part without a huge naval battle. And of course, there are exceptions to that. There's depending on how the game plays out. So when you look at that, you're like, okay, well, let's focus more on the getting the good land units and air units. Because we're going to come over here and get straight in. We want to get into these ground fights as quickly as we possible into Europe and North Africa. However, when you look over on this side, it's the opposite, where you're going to have to fight through that Japanese Navy. and you need to make sure you win that fight. If you don't win that fight, it doesn't matter how many transports you got behind you, they're not going to land. So over here, you look at that and you're like, well, I really want all the naval tech to really give me firepower and the extra bonuses and the special units and whatnot to be able to knock out the Japanese Navy, and then I'll worry about upgrading my units, and getting the advanced artillery and things like that. So it's kind of an odd comparison between the two coasts, and kind of what the overall, in general, strategy and way they work out is when you compare the two of them. And of course, like I said, there's always exceptions to how some of that will work out. Because there are games I know where Germany's knocked out the British Navy and suddenly, that changes everything. So now let's look at the actual techs themselves. Advanced artillery, yeah, that's solid. That's not bad. That'd be good for the war in Europe. Not quite as amazing over here because America's going to be doing, they're most likely going to be doing a lot of ground hopping, island hopping. So for a lot of the same reasons why Japan doesn't necessarily want to put a high priority on some of these land units, America's kind of got the same thing when you're talking about the Pacific. Same thing with advanced mech and heavy armor. You might get some chances in Europe to blitz with America. You're probably not going to get any chances to blitz over here. Again, for the same reason, maybe you need to liberate Australia, and being able to blitz will come in handy. Maybe you need to go help liberate India, and some blitzing will be useful. But other than that, these islands, they're just not gonna, you're not gonna be able to use that aspect of them. You're gonna get those techs for the better stats, basically. Jet fighter, yeah, nothing wrong with that choice for America. They usually want to be back. They want to back their Navy up and their ground landings with plenty of aircraft. Jet fighters would be awesome for that. They don't need to, the improved interception for them, generally speaking, their factories aren't going to be under threat, so they're really not going to be scrambling. Then we get to heavy strategic bombers. Now, historically, we know that America made a lot of heavy strategic bombers and sent them against Japan. It's a little bit harder to do that, and let me kind of back up a little bit. Heavy strategic bombers aren't a bad choice for America for this reason. Let's say they come into the war at a point where they were already able to research heavy strategic bombers all the way and start building them. So they've got a couple on hand. Over in the Atlantic, you can basically just fly them straight to Britain, and then the next turn they can be bombing Germany. It's that simple. You can fly directly from America to England most of the time, depending on what territory you're coming from, and there's really nothing Germany can do to stop you. There's no way of intercepting you. Japan is a little bit more, you need a little more prep work. You need to get your bombers into a position to threaten the mainland island, or some of their outlying holdings if you want to, bomb some of the ports, airfields, or things like that. So it's more of a two-step process. So it's completely doable, and you may have that in mind. Well, once I'm going to come over, I'm going to take back these islands, and then the next turn or two, I'll bring in some heavy bombers and start hitting, viable targets. Yeah, sure. But they're not going to be able to get into action probably as quickly as they would over in Europe. Now, actually, I didn't count that out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, basically, that still wouldn't even work. Yeah. So there's no way for American heavy bombers to fly straight from the mainland down to, say, Australia, and then maybe threaten some Japanese holdings down here and facilities, or be carpet bombing. And on top of that, if you want to use them to carpet bomb, remember a lot of this stuff over here is jungle. And carpet bombing is less effective in jungle. So also keep that in mind. But out of all the nations that are gonna really be able to want and use strategic heavy bombers to their fullest, America's probably in the best position to do that. Just for the fact that even if you just build a couple of them, fly them right over to Britain and then start bombing Germany the next turn, that's basically, you're getting into the war a lot sooner that way than you usually are going to be doing otherwise. Because we all know over here in the Pacific, it's an island hopping slog sometimes. And again, you've got to stage those bombers, and then you can start hitting Japan. There's really no way to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, there's really no good way to hit the mainland from any American holdings, assuming they're not already taken. Like Japan's probably going to want to take Wake Island just for that reason, because Wake can hit Tokyo. So at least they want to push the Americans back that turn. But again, heavy strategic bombers is a good choice for America. Long range aircraft, basically what I already said about heavy strategic bombers is that alone makes long range aircraft worth it, let alone all your other aircraft getting the extra movement. You can really reach out and touch somebody. You extend your striking range for some of those side Japanese fleets where maybe they broke off a portion to come take an island down here. Well, now that you've got long-range aircraft, you can hit that fleet with maybe 4 or 5 aircraft, knock it out, and kind of, bleed off some of the Japanese fleet. So yeah, long-range aircraft is just a good choice all around for America. Probably top tier in many regards. Advanced subs, not a bad choice. They won't be doing a whole lot of raiding unless they can get over here into this Japanese convoy, these 2 Japanese convoy lines. Yeah, there's the one up for Italy and the one for Germany, but the values are so small, it's probably not that big of a deal. But they're better at combat and again, they can sneak around more and maybe help out picking off some of those stragglers, or you get them into a position where they can go take out a lone transport that the opponent left unguarded. And you can just kind of, snipe away some of their ships that way. So yeah, advanced subs, not a bad choice either. Advanced anti-submarine warfare. Yeah, you're not going to be convoy raiding or escorting, probably, unless you're helping Britain out. So, that might, and I mean, that's not an unreasonable thing to maybe take over convoy duty for Britain, immediately free up all their ships, and then let them go ahead, because they're already closer to the action in the Atlantic, immediately let them go and start attacking the Italian and German navies, or at least post themselves up to be able to do an early D-Day. So that's one thing to consider too, is moving from America, relieving the British ships of escort duty and freeing them up for their turn. You might get Japan over here. America might need to deal with them trying to raid these lines over here and the Philippines if for some reason they haven't taken that. So advanced submarine warfare is not off the table. I just don't see it being worth a whole lot. Now, unless you got a ton of subs, because then you're really good at rolling ones and you can allocate a hit to attacking submarines. And I think that's in normal combat too, as far as I understand. So yeah, I don't, again, not that I wouldn't take it for that reason. That's more of just a extra layer of okay, well, if I get a hit or two, great. Strategic rockets. Now, out of all the nations on the board, the nation that probably has the least amount of use for strategic rockets is America. And for many of the same reasons that I talked about with their bombers. Their bombers are probably a better choice in the long run, although it's a little more risky because they can get shot down. On the other hand, America can be in a position where it gets them early, and just like they could do with their bombers and move them straight into London, they can start shipping over rockets as quickly as possible to the British mainland, drop them off, and then America are the ones who just lob rockets over to the German factories turn after turn after turn after turn. And they've got more economy to buy a little more of those frivolous items that might pay off, might be a good choice, but a nation like Britain, who's a little more tight on what they have to buy, they're just like, well, we need to buy this, we can't buy that, even though we want to because we think it'd be great. Strategic rockets, maybe something along those lines, but beyond that, I just don't see them having a whole lot of use for America on the game. But prove me wrong. So then we get to radar. Each escort ship gains +2 in their escort modifier roll. Again, if America's going to take over escort duty for Britain, then you might want this. Air bases can scramble. Probably not a huge deal for America. Now there are islands over here where you may have air bases on already, or you like Hawaii, or you want to go ahead and build an air base on and then stage a bunch of your aircraft there. Well, okay, maybe that's worth it. So that you can scramble them all into whatever fleet is next to that island. But barring something like that, really, I don't really see that being worth it for them. And again, for the same reason, the interception, I don't think that's going to be you're not going to see it come into play with America very often. Wartime economy. Now, out of all the nations, America is probably the only one that can kind of look at this and go, nah, I'm not going to bother. Now, if they decide to, they're still going to get an average of 7 IPP a turn once they're at war. Now, bear in mind, though, they are probably going to go into war a lot later than the other nations. So even though they're still going to get an average of those IPP 7 per turn, they're not going to get anywhere near as many turns of getting that income. So again, wartime economy just may not be worth it for America when you've got other more juicier things to roll for. Improved factories. Again, this one probably not a high priority for America. Now, one thing to look at, though, is where your factories are on the board. America likes to build its stuff right on the coast, so it can immediately pick up its guys and start moving them, or it can immediately fly its aircraft right off that into the wherever it needs to go. So building that stuff inland isn't usually as useful. Now, you may find yourself in a position where you may need to go ahead and build some units inland because you just ran out of space on all your coast factories that are on the coast. This would, help mitigate that. Because all along the Pacific coast, all those factories are right on the coast to start with. I want to say it's a minor, medium, and medium that they have there. They don't have any majors. So even if you upgrade them, that's still 15 units. That's probably more than enough. But then again, if you get improved factories, now you can put 24 units on that coast and immediately take them off with transports or fly them off if they're planes. So maybe it's worth getting for that if you run into an issue like that, but I don't think you will. And as far as minor factories go, the only place on this map that I think they can even consider building a minor factory outside of mainland USA is Alaska and the Philippines. And actually, if you're playing with the Alaska expansion, I think it's even more expensive to build them up there. And you probably don't want to build a factory in the Philippines or factories because, number one, you are restricted in how you build your stuff out here at the beginning of the game based on your IPP level. And then you need to actually pay to build the factory here. And then, let's face it, Japan's probably going to take it from you. Even if you do build a factory there and you have time to reinforce it with some units, militia and or proper units from the factory itself, Japan is they're going to be like, oh, now I get a factory. Oh, I'm going to just take that. Even if that's the only attack I do this turn, that's worth it. Now that they've got that nice low hanging fruit, so you probably don't want to build a factory there. Maybe in Alaska for some weird reason. Now, one other thing to consider, though, is if you get to align some of those Pan-American nations, you might improve factories may be worth it for you because I think Rio de Janeiro has one, and I'm pretty sure Buenos Aires has one. I don't think anybody else has. Now, this one's off. They can't align this one. That's only for Germany. But if they do go ahead and align Brazil, maybe with improved factories, you can go ahead and you're busy up there, up in Europe. You haven't done torch yet. Well, now maybe you spend a couple turns. You build some infantry. You build a transport and a destroyer or a cruiser or something like that. Build a couple guys. Build another one the next turn, and then you do kind of like Brazil goes ahead and takes the initiative with doing torch. So maybe something like that, or you want to build other factories down here for kind of that same thing. You're going to build a second production point to kind of come up this way. Not, and again, that's a big what if. I don't think it's likely to happen, but maybe you are in a position where you look at the situation and go, you know what, I could pull that off. So again, major factory or improved factory is probably not a high priority for America, but there are reasons you may want to consider it. Improved construction. Now, yes, just yes, you want improved construction. You may or may not use the facility reduction. America probably, once they start taking back some of these islands, they may want to put up some air bases to help their aircraft move around better. So there's that. You're probably not going to build a whole lot of other stuff. I mean, maybe some sub bait pens or something like that out here in the Pacific. But the real win to this is this this one. Instead of the one saving the one IPP per cycle, you can double up and get that first turn out of the way. And get your big badass ships out in the ocean all that much sooner. America has the economy to do this. It's nice to be able. Now, America's economy is huge, but it's not limitless. So if you have the time to get the discount, then you should take it. But if you need to get out there as quickly as possible, and in a lot of games, I hear people say America does because they didn't come in late until much later in the war, then you want to start paying that double cost, getting your big heavy hitters out there, splashing them, and getting into battle as quickly as possible. So that's the real reason America wants improved construction right there is that. So yes, this is a top tier one for them. Then we get to heavy battleship and heavy carrier, and both those are good choices. It just depends on what your preference is. What you want them to do. Attack transport, yes, you probably want to go ahead and go for that one because if I understand history correctly, I think America was really the only nation that had attack transport by the definition of what an attack transport is. I don't know whether we kind of invented it or whether we just had access to a lot of them or designed a lot of them. But yeah, attack transport for America, once you start coming over here and taking these islands back, or you're going for a torch or a D-Day, or anywhere you need to amphibiously land, yes, attack transports are worth it for America. So, with a couple exceptions, all of this stuff is useful for America. It's just a matter of what you want to go for and what you want to, what your overall goal is. Now if you're going for a kill Japan first, you probably want to focus on the naval stuff. If you're going for a kill Germany first or Italy, and Britain's done a good job of keeping those navies in check, well then maybe you want to go ahead and go for the more heavy hitting ground units. So yeah, it's all this is good for America. And then I'm not, like I said, all this is said, not worrying about their victory conditions for the tech. You will make that decision as the player when you want to go for them, even if you're not already going for them, because most of them actually are pretty decent for America anyway. The ones you want for your for the victory condition. So that's America. Again, feel free to disagree with me and let me know in the comments. And this is Wintermute signing off.